the media and establishment, they continue with this narrative that Tommy's this, terrible, racist, xenophobic guy without any evidence. As a matter of fact, it's just, I'm going to play a clip for you real quick.
We're just trying to raise awareness and bring the whole country together. So one of my main mottos, black and white unite, unite the colours, unite the faiths, in the face of extremism.
I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, I don't know if anybody can even more emphatically can say that they're not a racist xenophobe than that. What do you think about that?
Matt Goodwin has become an increasingly influential figure in British right-wing politics. He's a good guy, regular guest here on Outspoken, but what has been interesting of late is his move from independent academic to seemingly become a cheerleader for Nigel Farage, with, I would say, sights set on ending up in Reform UK's first cabinet. And that would probably be a very good thing for the country to have a guy like Matt Goodwin in post. But what that does mean is that sometimes it feels like we're not necessarily always getting exactly what Matt Goodwin thinks on issues. He has to follow the Faragist playbook, especially on the issue of Tommy Robinson. And that's why I was so interested when I saw this exchange by Don Keith of The Real Beef, who is our superstar panelist today and also a contributor for Urban Scoop, a big supporter and friend of Tommy Robinson, come head to head with Matt Goodwin. And what you'll see develop over the course of this interview is that Matt is left speechless when Don actually asks him to look at Tommy Robinson's words and Farage's words and then justify his opinion. This is really fascinating, by the way, because we also have Rebecca Jane with us today, former UKIP leader, UKIP deputy leader and Conservative commentator who takes a different position on the Tommy Robinson issue. So we're going to get analysis as we go on, but let's watch the start of this fascinating new episode of The Real Don Keith.
New branch of your political journey. Do you look back at someone like Tommy Robinson and think that he should have been given more grace for the things he's been saying for 16, 17 years? I know he's been accused of racism and all of those things. If you look back, and I've trust me, I've searched. Tommy's a friend of mine. I don't know if you know this or not. But I've searched through every video, every article I can find. I've never seen anything he's ever said that's racist. But for some reason, the media and establishment, they continue with this narrative that Tommy's this, terrible, racist, xenophobic guy without any evidence. As a matter of fact, it's just, I'm going to play a clip for you real quick, and I'll let you answer my question. This kind of answers my I don't know if you've ever seen this, but I've actually played this clip for people and it blew them away because they didn't even know this. I'm going to play it for you.
My name's Stephen. I'm a member of the English Defence League. So we're travelling to Stoke today, part of a national roadshow where we are raising awareness to the threat of militant Islam and the threat of extremism in our communities, which it is in many of our communities that live in diverse communities. And we're just trying to raise awareness and bring the whole country together. So one of my main mottos, black and white unite, unite the colours, unite the faiths, in the face of extremism.
Nazis! We do not welcome Nazis! There's a lady here today, a Caribbean lady, who's flown here today from the British Virgin Islands. She's flown here from the British Virgin Islands. We have West Indian youth here today. We have Sikhs here today. And it is our respect of every one of those communities that Nazis are the enemy. You will be treated as the enemy. And the fact that we're 4 years in and you still ain't got the message that you're not welcome on the streets of the English Defence League. We have burnt the swastika. We've chased you out of Luton. We've chased you out of Birmingham. When will you get the message that Nazis are never welcome in the English Defence League?
So I love that. It's what I describe as bringing the receipts. Don Keith had brought the receipts, presented them to Matt Goodwin, How did he respond? Watch.
I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, I don't know if anybody can even more emphatically can say that they're not a racist xenophobe than that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I've met Tommy Robinson a couple of times. We actually grew up not too far away from one another. He grew up in Luton. I grew up about 20 minutes down the road in a place called St Albans, and we're similar age. So I'm kind of, in some respects, we're quite similar, so I understand where he's come from. Anyway, my line on Tommy Robinson has always been that had the state and had the establishment listened to what he was saying when he first emerged in 2009, when he set up the English Defence League, when he talked about the rape gangs, when he talked about Islamist extremism, and when he talked about parts of the state being complicit in some of that, and we now see police officers being arrested for some of that, then I think we would have avoided some of the problems that we ran into as a society over the last decade. The fact of the matter is senior national journalists did not look at the issues that people like Tommy Robinson were talking about until 2011. The first proper journalist to do that really was Andrew Norfolk at the Times, 2 years after Robinson had started the English Defence League. So the legacy media were very slow to the things that he was talking about. And they were nervous about talking about it because of the way in which the only groups that were talking about it, like the English Defence League, were doing it in a very confrontational way. It was about marches on the streets, demonstrations. It was a very working class movement, which in Britain, in a highly class obsessed society, really does matter how you campaign and protest. And I think he lost a lot of the sort of the chattering classes very early on. And then, as he became more popular, and what tends to happen when you do become more popular, they started to see him as a threat.
Well, illuminating discussion, and we will have more in just one moment of how Goodwin responds to Farage's comments about Tommy Robinson. But before I come to Don Keith, Rebecca Jane, how do you react when you see Don play that early footage of Tommy Robinson, which probably his words go totally against the narrative that the mainstream media has tried to push about this guy for years, that he's a racist and that he's a thug and that he's an extremist?
I struggle with it because it feels like to me, and this was one of my issues. It comes across as a blanket, and I could be wrong here. And one of the reasons why I generally don't speak about this is I don't speak about something unless I absolutely know about it. But unfortunately, Dan, you're asking me, and I don't feel like I'm educated enough on this topic to give, and especially on Tommy, to give a properly good balanced view. So my very surface level opinion of it is that the way that they come across with the confrontational aspects of it and with some of the wording and the language that they use, it feels to me like it is quite a blanket. Every Muslim is not welcome in this country, on these streets, I think was the word. That is how, and I know that this is not, and I know this is not what was intended with it. I know that he's saying that there was a problem because there was a problem. I don't disagree with the things that he tries to stand up for, the gangs, the exploitation and everything else. Wonderful, thank goodness somebody is saying it, right? Because it takes a lot of courage and balls to stand up and actually to say this stuff, especially back then when the narrative was far worse than even now. So I'm really conflicted is the bottom line of it. I don't like the language. I don't like the way it's coming across. I don't like confrontation at the best of times, unsurprisingly. But I still don't like it, but I appreciate that there definitely was some truth in it. I think if the delivery had been better, do I think that they'd have been listened to? No, I don't.
No.
I don't think that we were ready for it. I think if it was starting now today and the delivery was a little bit better handled, Maybe slightly,
Maybe there's
but
more.
unfortunately,
So Don, how
Right.
do you respond to that criticism from Rebecca specifically in
I think we
regards to
watched two
Muslim
different
people?
clips. I think we watched two different
Yeah,
clips, man.
that's perception of people, isn't it?
He's
Everybody
clearly
views stuff
saying we don't
differently.
accept. He's clearly saying we don't accept Nazis because we have people who are. We have a Caribbean lady here. We have a Sikh individual here. We have West Indian youth here, and it's out of respect for them that we do not tolerate Nazis in the EDL. So what? I don't know. Understand how you get out of that? We don't want any Muslim on the street. I don't. I don't.
It was a sentence at the begin. It was a sentence at the beginning of the video that if I'd have had a pen and paper, I'd have written it down, because it was a specific sentence about Muslim, and then it came across
No,
and
you
like, this is not
misunderstood. You
welcome on this
misunderstood.
street.
You
That's how
misunderstood
it
that.
came across to me. And but again, I feel like if you go in with this, and I know that we have to shout and we have to make a scene in order to get sort of our opinions heard these days. I know that that's the norm. But if you want to come across in such a confrontational way, maybe the message does get lost on some people, like it does with me. Like that is a fact of life. That if you
That's always been the Farage argument.
Missing.
That's always been the Farage argument, hasn't it? That almost in order to allow your opinion to be heard in the United Kingdom, you have to sort of go so far away from that type of street fight approach, which is why Goodwin was specifically referencing the class issue. Now, stand by, both of you, because I want to show one more fascinating part of this interview, and this is when Don challenges Matt Goodwin on some of the things that Nigel Farage have said about Tommy Robinson. Really good. Watch. But first, the reason you're watching this show is that it's becoming increasingly difficult to trust mainstream media or the so-called fact-checkers who claim to determine which facts are true. And for good reason, given the ongoing debates over free speech, the controversy surrounding Brexit, and how Trump and other anti-establishment politicians are portrayed. But I have the solution. It's called Ground News, and it's the best way to stay informed and cut through media bias and manipulative narratives so you can get the facts for yourself. It's been a game changer for a news junkie like me. See for yourself at ground.news/outspoken. But I want to show you what is an incredible website and app in action. So let's look at that recent Supreme Court decision in the UK that ruled that women can only be biological adult human females, reversing years of trans extremism. Now, you can see clearly in one place that over 350 sources around the world are covering this story. Ground News instantly shows how it's being covered by the media, broken down by whether they lean to the left or the right. This is called the bias distribution chart. If you scroll down, you can see every headline about the story, along with the political bias and ownership of the publication. We can see for ourselves quite clearly, for example, that on the right, the Daily Wire covered the case very accurately with the headline, UK Supreme Court rules trans-identifying men are not women. Spiked Online was even more forthright, declaring women exist, get over it. And the Daily Telegraph looked in depth at the disgraced famous faces who declared trans women are women. By stark contrast, the left-wing National said the result was only a victory for gender-critical feminists, and the Canary, this was my favourite for all the wrong reasons, ran with this clearly ludicrous headline, "Victory for the far right as Supreme Court rolls back trans women's rights by 2 decades. Far right? Try calling J.K. Rowling that to her face." My favourite feature, though, of Ground News is the blind spot feed, which surfaces upwards of 20 stories daily that receive the majority of coverage from one side of the political spectrum. So if you love the news like I do, the blind spot feed is the best way to get a balanced perspective on what's happening. Go to ground.news/outspoken or scan the QR code on screen to subscribe today, and you'll get 40% off the same Vantage plan that I use for unlimited access. That's ground.news/outspoken. But now, back to the show.
He could just say, just not talk. I mean, politicians in America do it all the time. If media asks them about somebody, they just either no comment or they just move on. But, you know, there's a difference between not talking about it and just making up a blatant lie about the guy, because he's never assaulted a woman. I think, you know, I think he actually owes Tommy an apology for that part of it. You know what I mean?
I didn't. Yeah, so I didn't quite see the incident you're referring to.
Yeah, it was GB maybe GB News. I
Right.
have a clip of it, but you know, I'm gonna play this clip for you, and I can just give you an idea. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Nigel from 2016. I wish he would get back to being that guy. I'm just gonna play this real quick for you.
Times today is carrying a story about one of your aides and colleagues, George Cottrell, who has a conviction for wire fraud in the America and has been named in another criminal investigation in Montenegro. Do you want him by your side on the campaign trail?
I firstly always stand by my friends. And secondly, there is a thing called Christian forgiveness. If people get convicted of something or do something wrong, well, they have another chance in life to go on and prove themselves.
Mr. Farage, thank you.
If in a country that believes in Christian forgiveness, he is not a good example to young tearaways, I don't think it is. Do you believe in Christian forgiveness?
Everyone believes in redemption. Everyone should have second chances.
Is he not a very good example?
Nigel, that is not the question I'm asking.
Would you accept Robinson as a member of your party? UKIP over that association with him last time.
You know, Robinson has been to prison many, many times for many, many things. Mortgage fraud, passport problems, you name it. He's got his own campaign. We're a political party aiming to win the next general election. He's not what we need.
Yeah. So you see what I mean? I get the whole strategy about Tommy, but it's like everybody deserves Christian forgiveness except for Tommy Robinson. So, you know, that's just what kind of irks me about Nigel.
Well, from
George
Nigel's
Cottrell was his
perspective,
financier. Just to give you a little background, I don't know if you know, George Cottrell actually funded his trip to see Elon. 11,000 pounds he paid for Nigel's trip to see Elon. The other guy was James McMurdoch, MP, Reform MP. So those guys deserve Christian forgiveness, but you know, a working class guy like Tommy Robinson does, and that's what just kind of irritates me about Nigel. If he could just lay off that kind of stuff and, you know, speak his message, I think he'd get a lot more support, because Tommy, believe it or not, has Sky News reported that Tommy's Trafalgar Square demo had 100,000 people at it. So if 100,000 people are attending a demo, there's got to be millions out there who like the guy.
I think there is an important dividing line between people who are campaigning primarily at elections and people who are campaigning primarily on the street. Mm-hmm. And I do think that distinction is important. I mean, whatever you think about Nigel Farage, he's the only politician in British political history who's won 2 nationwide elections with 2 different parties. Mm-hmm. Right? I don't, you know, it's with both the UK Independence Party and the Brexit Party. I think Tommy Robinson stood for election at a European Parliament election in a part of the country, and I think he polled 2 or 3%. Now, that's not a criticism of Robinson. It's just to say that these 2 guys have fundamentally different views about how to change the country.
How long ago was that Tommy ran? Do you know?
I would have guessed, 2019?
2019, that recent. Okay.
2019, 2014. But I think, look, I think underneath this is an even deeper question, which is, how do you actually save a country?
So, I mean, I find that all really, really fascinating. Rebecca Jane, my first question to you, having seen that, is Nigel Farage being unfair on Tommy Robinson?
Yeah, of course he is. I thought it was really funny, actually, because you just saw Matt like this.
Yeah, Don, I don't think he knew what he was signing up for.
No, the cops were just like, oh no, what do I say? And then you can see him sort of like go all around the houses and come back to nonsense about people on the street and politicians. What? You've not even answered the question. You've not even acknowledged.
I know, but this is what I hate. This is what I hate. This is what I hate about what Reform UK are doing to people. And look, I've been so open, Don, right? I voted for Reform UK at the last election. I would be voting for them next week if I had a local election. I was colleagues with Nigel Farage for 3 years. Sorry, Rebecca, I missed that. What was that?
I said, you're stupid.
Well, no, because my point is, at the moment, I think they are the best option. But I'm not a propagandist. I'm not just going to give the party a free pass because I think this country has so much to save. But what you will have noticed, if you take that approach, Don, within Reform UK, you're immediately called the enemy. They thrust you out. If you're Rupert Lowe, they call the police on you. And that's why people like Matt Goodwin, who I think, and I hate to say this, I think he's almost betraying his audience because he's not been able to say what he really thinks because he's so worried about appeasing Reform UK. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but at the same time, I have to give some kudos to Matt because he's come a long way from where he used to be. He used to be, his primary concern was writing on right wing populism and extremism. And to go, I even saw a publication it was sent to me that he wrote for Hope Not Hate. So
yes, he's come a long way. And look, his Substack is amazing, and Matt Goodwin has appeared here on Outspoken. I mean, none of this is a criticism of Matt Goodwin. I think I'm just trying to present the reality of if you're within Reform UK now, people are terrified. They're terrified to say what they really think, and I hate that because I thought Reform UK were meant to be about free speech.
Well, wait till you see the rest of our interview.
I can't wait, and it's out today, right?
Well, it was it's going to be out right after I get off with you. I'm going to post it. But he actually, I was very impressed with him. I thought he was very candid, very fair-minded. He was very positive, even about Tommy on most points. And there was something he said. He said that if my only criticism of Tommy, something to this effect, is he could have done things early on a little differently, which Tommy himself will agree with you on, and I agree with you, and I think most people do. But he was very positive, even about Tommy. I thought what he said about reform was very deliberate, and I just thought he was overall, he had the nation's best interest at heart. That was my opinion of him. I didn't think he pulled any punches. I just thought he was a fair-minded,
there was
genuine guy.
one more short clip that I wanted to play, actually, because this is where I completely agree that we are only one election away from complete catastrophe in the UK. And I think that's probably something that all of us, if there's one thing we can all agree on, it's this. Watch.
On X recently that I think we probably have 2 national elections left to save the UK. And Elon Musk replied and said, no, you have one. I think there is a view that if we do not get radical political change within the next few years, that a lot of what we're witnessing will become irreversible.
And we all agree with that, right? Because we've got one more election, Rebecca, right? You agree? It's too late after that.
I actually don't think that we've got one more. I think we're on the way. I think we're well on the way. I don't think we've got one more. I think that we're pretty much almost in catastrophe as it is. Country's in absolute shambles. And we said it before the general election. How many times did we have this conversation where I kept on saying, Conservatives, terrible. People are going to vote for Labour. It's going to get worse. It's got worse. It's going to keep getting worse. We don't have another election left in us. And that's where I have to stop reading the news. I have to start taking part in this nonsense that we call politics, because what the hell else is that?
I know, and so many people feel that way. And I guess I hope that I provide like a little life draft of sanity, and don't stop coming on Outspoken.
I think you do. I think you do.
Thank you both. I love you both. Keep doing your brilliant work, Rebecca Jane, former UKIP deputy leader, Conservative commentator, and Don Keith, host of The Real Beef with Don Keith. And where can people see that full episode, Don, later?
Yeah, right after this is at 6 your time it posts.
And what platforms?
On X, my handle is @RealDonKeith on X. So you can find me there, and you can find this video there.
Amazing. Cannot wait to watch the whole thing. Thank you both so much. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.